Ash fell like snow over the broken world. Eltara Prime, once a jewel among the human colonies, now lay in ruin, a vast cemetery of scorched cities and lifeless forests. Black smoke curled into the ochre sky, and the scent of charred metal and flesh clung to the air like a curse. Commander Kale Delrix moved silently through the devastation, boots crunching over glass and bone, his rifle slung low, a weapon with no targets left to kill. His breath echoed inside his helmet, calm and mechanical, yet something raw and volcanic stirred beneath the surface. 22 million lives extinguished in less than an hour. No evacuation, no warning. The Zarvek Imperium had descended without mercy, launching an orbital barrage so sudden and complete that the world's defense grid had barely activated. Alongside them, their silent partners, the Etherian Syndicate and the Luxari Dominion, stood idle, watching. The Alliance claimed it was a preemptive strike, a necessary measure to neutralize an emerging threat. Kale knew better. It was extermination, a calculated purge. He paused near the remnants of school, twisted rebar poking from collapsed walls like ribs of a fallen beast. A half-melted swing swayed in the breeze, creaking mournfully. Kale crouched, fingers brushing over scorched steel, still warm from fire. His visor flickered, registering faint biosignature ghosts, faint echoes, nothing alive. He knew, yet he scanned anyway. Hope was a difficult habit to kill. Footsteps approached. Lieutenant Cinnamoro appeared beside him, her armor scratched and scorched, her expression carved from cold stone. She removed her helmet, revealing braided hair streaked with soot and eyes that had cried their last tear weeks ago. "Shelter tunnels are full of bodies," she said, voice dry, cracked. "No survivors." Kale stood without responding. His eyes followed the curve of the shattered skyline, towers sliced in half like toppled monoliths. The twin moons of Eltara hung low, casting silver over the charred earth. There had been no justice, no retaliation. The Terran Council was silent, tied up in bureaucracy, diplomacy, or fear. Whatever the reason, Kale didn't care. The answer, as far as he was concerned, was already written in ash. "Call the others," he said. They gathered beneath the remains of Central Command, inside a barely functional war room where the holomap flickered uncertainly. The survivors stood in a circle, silent but united. Once, they had been more than 2,000. Now they were 6. Veterans of covert jungle warfare. The jungle elite had operated on worlds no one dared to chart, surviving conditions no human body should endure. They had fought in the dark, under alien suns, among the vines and mud and silence. Now, they had nothing left to protect, nothing left but each other. Kale, Senna, Rika, Joran, Taz, Nyril. 6 blades home by loss. Rika leaned on a crutch, her prosthetic leg malfunctioning from heat damage. Her face was half covered in burned scar tissue. She said nothing, but her one good, "I watch Kale like a hawk." Joran was already checking his gear. A sniper, quiet and methodical, his armor repainted black. Taz sat hunched on a crate, carbon steel arms folded, breathing like a bull ready to charge. Nyril, pale and solemn, examined the galaxy projection, his fingers twitching slightly from old neural trauma. And Senna stood beside Kale, silent and still, his shadow. "We buried the last of them this morning," Kale said. "Families, civilians, children, all gone. And what does the council do? Send condolences, offer negotiations, tell us to wait." Tez growled low, while the bastards who did this rest fat in orbit. Kale nodded slowly. "We trained for the impossible. We survived where no one else could. It wasn't for medals. It was for this. For what comes now." Joran folded his arms. "You're talking about revenge." "No," Kale said. "I'm talking about justice, delivered by those who've already died." He tapped a point on the holomap. A red flare appeared over the moon Rither 9, an outer rim weapons depot used by the Zarvek Imperium. Lightly guarded, strategically vital, and built within a jungle climate. The kind of environment the jungle elite called home. "One depot won't change anything," Nyril said. "No," Kale agreed, "but it will send a message. Senna stepped forward. One strike becomes 2, then 10. The coalition grows comfortable. Arrogant. If we move fast, we stay ghosts. They won't see us coming, Rika added, voice a low rasp. Joran hesitated, clearly calculating. We don't have backup. No command. No extraction protocols. We don't need them, Kale said. We have purpose. They stared at him, each lost in their own storm of grief and fury, but all anchored by the same truth. There would be no redemption, no salvation, only the mission, the first of many. That night, Kale climbed what was left of the watchtower overlooking the eastern ridge, carrying with him a portable transmitter. He activated the encrypted beacon and set it to pulse directly toward Zarvek-controlled space. The signal would be intercepted. That was the point. This is Commander Kale Delrix, he said. Eltara Prime is dead. You made sure of that. But you failed to kill us all. You created something worse. Survivors with no world left to lose. We are the jungle elite, and we are coming for you. One empire at a time. He paused, letting the silence between stars stretch long and deep, then ended the message. At dawn, the remaining 6 stood beneath a makeshift hangar where their ship, a stealth-class frigate retrofitted for Black Ops, rested under camo mesh and synthetic vines. It wasn't much, but it was all they had. Kale checked the loading sequence. Supplies, minimal. Weapons, sufficient. Armor, scorched but serviceable. The others boarded in silence. Senna moving to tactical, Joran heading to the sniper bay, Rika adjusting her prosthetic as she loaded grenades. Nyril plugged into NAV systems, while Taz secured the cargo hold with a mechanic's precision. They moved like muscle memory, like a machine rebuilt from pain. Joran approached Kale at the ramp. What happens if this fails? It doesn't, Kale said. And if we don't come back? Kale stared at him. We already didn't. Joran nodded and stepped inside. The ramp hissed shut. Kale took the pilot's seat and looked out across Eltara Prime one final time. The winds kicked up ash in dancing swirls across the ruins. The sun breached the horizon in a dull orange blaze, setting fire to what little sky remained. His fingers danced across the controls. The ship lifted soundlessly and soared upward, slicing through clouds, leaving behind a dead world and the memory of 22 million voices crying out in silence. They would not be forgotten, not while he still breathed. As the stars opened above, Kale whispered to himself, not as a commander, but as a man carrying the weight of extinction. Let them fear the jungle. Rain fell in rhythmic sheets over the jungle moon of Rither 9, its thick canopy swaying under the weight of distant thunder. The air was heavy with moisture and the scent of rot and moss, a sharp contrast to the fire-scorched atmosphere of Eltara Prime. This world breathed, whispered, and concealed. It was the kind of terrain the jungle elite understood better than any Imperial officer ever could. The Zarvek Imperium called it a minor weapons storage facility. Kale called it the First Blood. The stealth frigate hovered beneath the canopy, cloaked and silent. It exhaled the 6 soldiers like phantoms into the green murk. Kale moved first, blade sheathed and rifle slung across his back. He breathed deep, grounding himself in the wet earth, in the dense humidity. This place was alive, dangerous, and indifferent. Just like them. The team dispersed silently. Senna took point left, slipping through vines like smoke. Rika limped behind her, her prosthetic leg now reinforced with carbon fiber bands to absorb the unstable terrain. Taz and Nyril moved right, flanking the outpost perimeter. Joran stayed behind in the high treetops, scope already scanning for movement. Each knew their role. Each moved with the precision of ghosts born in war. Kale signaled a halt near a moss-covered ridge that overlooked the Zarvek compound. Through the lenses of his helmet, the heat signatures of 27 guards painted the map in flickering red. Drones patrolled the perimeter, clumsy and loud. Turrets rotated in predictable cycles. Their arrogance was their weakness. No one expected 6 humans to infiltrate a military moon. Rika knelt beside Kale and unlatched her scanner. No thermal dampeners. No infrared traps. This place is a glorified warehouse with teeth. Kale studied the structure. Their confidence will kill them. Senna's voice crackled over comms. There's a service tunnel under the west ridge. Leads straight into the command bay. Taz joined in. Power lines are exposed along the outer wall. I can short their grid for 20 seconds. Enough to blind them. Kale nodded. We breach from below. Kill silently. No alarms. They moved in fluid unison. Each step, each breath, calculated. The jungle accepted them, masked them, protected them like a sentient shield. The service tunnel was narrow and slick with condensation, but the darkness welcomed them. At its end, a rusted hatch waited. Nyril bypassed the lock in seconds, his fingers dancing across the datapad like a pianist resurrecting muscle memory. They entered a maintenance corridor dimly lit by flickering bulbs. The muffled hum of machinery pulsed through the walls. Kale held up 2 fingers, pointed forward. Rika and Senna advanced, knives drawn. Taz followed, ready to disable power at Kale's signal. Joran's voice came low and steady. Patrol entering East Wing. 3 guards. You got 60 seconds. Kale responded with a click. The team fanned out. Shadows shifted. 2 Zarvek soldiers passed beneath a flickering light, unaware that death had already chosen them. Senna descended like a falcon, her blade piercing the first guard's neck in one smooth motion. Rika silenced the second with a throat strike and a backward stab. The third spun, weapon raised, but Kale was already there, hand over his mouth, blade driven up under his jaw. No alarms. No sound. Just breath, heartbeat, silence. Taz pulled the power grid module open and yanked a fiber cable loose. The lights sputtered, then died. Within the command room, guards cursed and scrambled. Kale signaled, and the team burst through the access door, weapons raised. Nyril lobbed an EMP charge that silenced drones midair. Rika and Senna moved in a whirlwind of gunfire and blades. Kale fired only once, through the eye of the officer reaching for an alarm. It was quick, brutal, efficient. Within 40 seconds, the room fell still, filled only with the stench of ozone and blood. Kale scanned the databanks, accessing stored reports. His breath hitched when he saw the files. Images, schematics, videos. Not of weapons, of experiments. Human subjects in Zarvek medical chambers, modified, twisted, turned into something else. Biological hybridization. Reverse-engineered DNA taken from Eltara Prime. Their dead are being repurposed into weapons. Rika leaned over his shoulder, her voice hoarse. They're turning us into soldiers. Slaves. Kale said nothing, but his hand tightened on the edge of the console until his knuckles turned white. Senna stepped forward. Orders. Kale closed the interface. Destroy everything. Every server. Every data core. This facility doesn't just fall. It burns. Taz rigged a fuel line breach while Nyril planted charges along the load-bearing columns. The team retreated back through the tunnel, the compound already beginning to groan under stress. At the tree line, Kale turned back. Rither 9 shimmered in the firelight as flames began to spill from the building's seams. A soft rumble vibrated the ground. Then the sky cracked as the command center erupted in a controlled inferno. Metal screamed and folded. The jungle absorbed the noise like it had absorbed the team, silently, without judgment, but not without cost. As the explosion lit the night, Kale turned to count heads. 5. Rika was missing. He ran back, against protocol, past the edge of the tree line. The comms crackled. Rika. No response. He found her 10 meters from the service tunnel, back against a rock, leg mangled beyond repair. Her eyes were open but glazed, her breathing shallow. Blood soaked the moss beneath her, thick and dark. Kale dropped to his knees. You weren't supposed to. She coughed, a small laugh caught in pain. Didn't want you to plant the charges wrong. He pressed a seal over her side, knowing it was futile. She gripped his forearm. Promise me, they won't forget us. They won't, Kale whispered. She smiled, teeth bloodstained. Then go. He didn't want to, but he knew what she'd want. He stood and walked away, each step heavier than the last. The ship lifted 10 minutes later, the team silent. Kale sat in the cockpit, eyes locked on the burning moon below. Senna approached from behind. We lost her. I know. She didn't have to die. She chose to, he said, voice like gravel. They need to know we're willing to pay the price. Joran leaned in from the NAV console. We got a signal before the explosion. Zarvek command scramble comms. They're scared. Kale didn't smile, but something in him uncoiled. Good. Fear is a start. Nyril uploaded a final image to the beacon they'd leave behind. The Jungle Elite symbol carved into the charred wall of the command bay. Below it, in red paint, the words, "One Empire Down." As the ship veered into deep space, engines humming low, the crew sat in silence. One gone. 5 remained. A message sent. A war begun. They were no longer soldiers bound to orders. They were ghosts of a murdered world, and now the stars would know them. One target at a time. The cold machine world of Mecha 7 rotated slowly beneath them, a gleaming ball of polished steel and humming circuits suspended in the void. Unlike Rither 9, this was not a jungle moon or an organic world. This was pure artificiality, metal layered over metal, skies replaced by surveillance grids, and oceans supplanted by energy fields. The Etherean Syndicate ruled here, a race of cybernetic entities that once stood as allies in the coalition against Eltara Prime. Their betrayal had been clinical, logical, and precise. Now they were next. Kale stood in the command bay of the Jungle Elite's ship, eyes locked on the magnified projection of the planet. The blue glint of distant satellites flickered across his face like reflections of ghosts. His jaw was tense, posture still, but his fingers traced patterns on the console, twitches of memory, planning doubt. The mission on Rither 9 had achieved its goal, but they had lost Rika. That pain still lived in his bones, even if he hadn't spoken of it aloud. Joran entered, wordless, carrying a data slate. He handed it over without eye contact, then turned to check the weapon's cache, moving with quiet deliberation. They know we're coming, Kale said finally. They always knew, Joran replied. They just didn't think we'd keep coming after Rither. Kale studied the intelligence. The Etherean's central neural hub, called the Mind Spire, was embedded in the heart of the capital city, protected by layers of sentry drones and biometric access points. Deep underground, unreachable by orbital strike or brute force. But they had a way in. Senna entered next, adjusting her harness. The biosignature key is real. Our contact came through. Kale looked at her. And the source? She hesitated. One of ours, a defector, said he was Jungle Elite back in the early days. He'll meet us inside the fringe sector. Claims he's embedded as a low-level engineer. Kale narrowed his eyes. Name? Dark Joran, she said. Older than you. Joran, by the weapons rack, stiffened at the name. Kale noticed. Something to say? Joran responded after a moment. He's my brother. The silence that followed was sharp. I thought he was dead, Joran added. But if he's alive and helping them, Kale nodded once. We deal with it when we see him. Their ship entered low orbit under stealth protocols, slipping between blind spots in the Etherean surveillance web. The team disembarked via an old ventilation shaft beneath the industrial zones, dropping into the artificial cities under layers. Unlike jungle terrain, this world offered no concealment. Only narrow corridors, red-lit tunnels, and a constant buzz of machines thinking faster than human minds. The contact met them near a reactor coolant pipeline. He was older than Joran, his face a mask of metal and skin, a full neural uplink visible beneath his scalp. His eyes, though dulled by years of cybernetic augmentation, still recognized the man approaching him. Joran, Dark said, voice distorted by vocal implants. Still breathing. Joran's expression was unreadable. I should shoot you. You wouldn't be the first who tried. Kale stepped forward. You said you had access. I do, Dark answered, offering a small device. This will bypass the MindSpire security field, but you'll only have a 5-minute window before it resets. After that, it'll trap you inside. What's the price? Senna asked. Dark glanced at Joran, then back at Kale. That you burn all. Don't leave anything standing. Not even the backups. Kale studied him, then took the device. You're sure about this? I saw what they did, Dark replied. To humans. To our dead. They're not allies. They're parasites in chrome. The team moved fast. Every corridor was a death trap. Drones patrolled in unpredictable intervals, but Senna's timing and Niral's hacking kept them one step ahead. They reached the Mindspire Vault, a massive chamber filled with crystalline processors and pulsating cables like veins. The center contained a column of blue energy where the Etherean consciousness pooled and fragmented itself, updating and evolving by the second. Kale inserted the device. The chamber dimmed. For 5 minutes, the Mindspire would be blind. Niral began uploading the virus, his fingers trembling as the data poured into the processor. Sweat dotted his brow, though the room was freezing. This won't just crash their system, he said. It'll rewrite the command algorithms. Wipe their neural architecture. Do it, Kale said. But just as the upload reached 70%, the vault doors hissed open. A drone floated in, sleek and silent, followed by 3 more. And behind them, something taller, humanoid in shape, but clearly no longer organic. Kale cursed. They're early. The battle erupted fast. Joran dropped to a knee, taking out a drone midair. Senna lunged at the next, slicing through it with her vibroblade. Niral ducked behind the console, continuing the upload while Tez intercepted the tall figure. It moved like lightning, striking with cold precision. Taz fell hard, armor dented but intact, returning a brutal punch that sent sparks flying. Kale fired 3 rounds into the lead drone's core, then turned to help Joran, who was locked in a struggle with the final unit. Metal shrieked against metal. Blood splattered. The drone fell. But the tall figure, clearly an Etherean hybrid, still stood. It grabbed Taz by the throat, lifting him, circuits pulsing with blue fire. Then a single shot rang out. The hybrid dropped. A hole burned through its skull. Joran stood behind it, rifle smoking. His breathing was heavy, his face pale. It's done, Niral called out. Upload complete. The Mindspire core pulsed, then flickered. A low whine filled the chamber as the AI collapsed in on itself, unable to sustain corrupted code. Across Mecha 7, systems began to fail. Lights dimmed. Sirens wailed. Power grids crashed. The Etherean consciousness fractured, screaming in binary. Kale signaled the retreat. They ran through now chaotic corridors, alarms blaring, drones crashing into walls or falling dead from the air. As they reached the exfiltration point, Kale glanced at Joran. You didn't have to shoot it. Joran looked away. It was never just a mission. They used our people, turned them into tools. My brother helped them do it. He tried to undo it, Senna said. Too late, Joran replied. They climbed into the ship. Engines engaged. As they lifted off, the surface of Mecha 7 dimmed like a city drowning in shadow. No one said anything for several minutes. The loss, the weight of action, hung heavy in the air. Senna finally broke the silence. 2 empires down. Kale didn't respond at first. He watched the retreating planet on the view screen, watched it flicker like a dying star. They won't recover, Niral said. The Ethereans were symbiotic. Without their core mind, the rest will fall apart. Joran leaned back, eyes closed. Then we're halfway there. Kale turned from the view, his voice low. No, we're not even close. The Luxari Dominion shimmered like a mirage against the backdrop of space, a kaleidoscope of crystalline spires, energy fields, and orbiting monuments to its own grandeur. Where the Zarvek were brutal and the Ethereans cold, the Luxari were something worse, elegant. Their genocide had not come from fear or strategy, but from philosophy. They saw themselves as the rightful stewards of evolution, and humanity as a viral mistake. Eltara Prime's destruction was not an act of war in their eyes. It was purification. The jungle elite approached in silence, hidden beneath a cloaking shield patched together from the remnants of Etherean tech. Their ship glided over the Luxari homeworld, a planet wrapped in glittering light, guarded by fleets that had never known defeat. It didn't matter. The elite weren't here to conquer. They were here to end a dynasty. Kale stood at the edge of the operations deck, his face a hollow mask beneath the scars and ash of 3 missions. His body ached from old wounds, but his resolve burned hotter than ever. Behind him, Senna adjusted her armor, which still bore scorch marks from Mecha 7. Her eyes met his for a moment. They didn't speak. There was no need. Nyril plotted the insertion path with sharp precision. The capital city of Valshera floated above a network of skybridges and mirror towers. At its heart stood the Crystal Spire, home to the Dominion's Empress and the central mind of their imperial bureaucracy. The spire wasn't merely a palace. It was a symbol, a throne of light and legacy. It was also where the Luxari had given the order to erase Eltara Prime. Joran sat alone in the weapon bay, cleaning his rifle with methodical purpose. He hadn't said much since Mecha. The knowledge that his brother had helped build the enemy's tools and then died trying to undo them had left him colder than before. But Kale knew something had changed in him. His fire wasn't gone. It had simply focused. Taz, recovered from his injuries, helped Senna load the last of the shaped charges into a transport pod. The plan was brutal and simple. Get inside, breach the spire, confront the Empress, and destroy the Dominion's nerve center from within. No survivors. No legacy. Windows tight, Nyril said. We drop under a maintenance dome during a diplomatic cycle. 10 minutes between guard rotations. Kale nodded. That's more than we need. The drop came swift and clean. The team descended onto a skybridge under cover of a false maintenance signal, suits shimmering to match the light around them. Valshera was silent in its perfection, glowing walkways and mirrored walls reflecting endless fractals of color. There were no screams here, no fear, just quiet judgment carved into crystal. They moved quickly, scaling a gravity column into the base of the spire. Every step through the tower was a walk through a museum of genocide. Statues of Luxari warriors holding the banners of conquered species. Artworks crafted from alloys melted down from enemy ships. In the center chamber stood a sculpture titled The Silence of Eltara, a twisted representation of a dying planet cast in radiant gold. Taz paused, staring at it. They made art from us. Not for long, Kale said, and kept walking. Security was tighter than expected. Luxari guards wore reflective armor and wielded blade rifles that sang when drawn. But the jungle elite were past the point of subtlety. The first group fell to Joran's precise fire, the second to Senna's blade and Nyril's explosives. Blood stained the white halls, smoke curled along mirrored ceilings. As alarms began to ring, Kale moved faster. They reached the throne chamber as the last of the resistance fell behind them. The door to the spire's heart opened not with violence, but with a soft tone, almost like an invitation. Inside stood the Empress. She was tall, wrapped in a gown woven from living silk, her hair flowing like liquid silver. Her eyes glowed faintly with bioluminescence, and her expression was one of disappointment rather than fear. Around her stood 2 guards, still and silent. "So," she said, voice like chimes, "the last remnants of a failed species arrive, dripping vengeance and ash. I thought you'd come sooner." Kale stepped forward, rifle aimed, unwavering. "I came when it mattered. You believe this will undo Eltara? That revenge rewrites Extinction. We don't want to rewrite it," Kale said. "We want you to feel it." "You already lost," the Empress replied, turning slightly. "Your people were a mistake. Fragile, emotional, impulsive. We removed a threat to order. Do you think history will mourn your kind?" Taz raised his weapon. "Only yours." The guards moved, but too slowly. Senna and Joran opened fire, cutting them down before they reached striking distance. The Empress didn't flinch. She simply stared at Kale as if analyzing a specimen. Her eyes softened for a moment, almost in pity. "You have no empire, Commander. No voice. No children to inherit your fury." Kale lowered his rifle slightly. "You're right." He stepped forward, placing a small device at the base of the crystalline throne. A pulse emitted, disabling communications, locking the doors, neutralizing failsafes. The Empress turned her gaze to the blinking light, for the first time showing a flicker of unease. "You won't leave this place," she said. "We didn't plan to," Kale replied. Nyril and Senna moved quickly, planting charges along the throne room support columns. The structure began to hum, the weight of doom pressing against the air. Joran placed one last explosive at the base of the art piece, forged from Eltara's destruction. The Empress approached Kale, slowly, carefully. "You would die for vengeance?" "No," Kale said. "I'm dying so no one forgets." She raised her hand, a blade forming from her sleeve, but Joran shot it from her wrist before it could strike. Kale stepped forward and looked her in the eyes, memorizing every gleam of arrogance, every twist of superiority, and then pulled the trigger. She fell without grace. The team gathered in the center of the chamber. The escape path had never existed. This was the end they had chosen. Nyril opened a small hollow recorder and activated the final transmission. Kale spoke one last time. "This is the jungle elite. We were born to survive. Then they took away what made survival worth it. Let this message be a warning. When you build empires on bones, don't be surprised when ghosts come to collect." The detonator was silent as Kale pressed it. Above the planet, from hidden corners of the galaxy, the explosion was seen as a star collapsing. The crystal spire disintegrated into shards of light, a monument to cruelty reduced to stardust. Back on the elite's ship, set to autopilot and ejected into deep space before the mission, a final message played on loop across shadow channels, encrypted to reach anyone listening. The jungle is quiet now, but we were never just warriors. We were memory, and memory never dies. The war had started with silence. It ended with fire,